Earlier, how, in the beginning of our marriage, how you just really didn't want to fool with it because it just was uncomfortable, didn't really know where to place it. We have to realize that as people, stuff happens, life happens, and things get messy, and we have to be okay in marriage to get in the messy with our people, with our spouses,
And welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about marriage matters because
marriage matters.
So if you're watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman and I'm joined as always by my beautiful wife.
Hi guys, I'm Tynia Coleman.
Yep. And so I always like to start off every week just asking you about your week. So how was your week?
My week was pretty good. Just, we're still getting in our rhythm of things and getting everyone where they need to be and all of that and work. And so it was good. What about you?
Pretty good. Pretty normal week. I would say nothing dramatic or life-changing but just,
That's good.
That's a good thing, right?
So, we've had enough dramatics and life-changing events.
All of that. Yeah. So this week, I guess if you want to go ahead and get into this week's topic, that cool?
That's cool. Let's do it.
So this week, I want to talk about emotional support.
Okay.
And how to be there for your spouse. And what does that look like for me? What does that look like for you? Mm-hmm. And as always, I don't like doing, generalizations, but in just from, I know for a lot of the men that I've spoken with and a lot of the couples we've worked with, there tends to be a sort of pattern with most men, a pattern with most women, and what emotional support looks like for men, what emotional support looks like for women. So I guess I want to look at it, what I'm expecting from you as a man, and then what I try to do for you as your husband. So like, what am I expecting from you as emotional support? And then what do I try to give you as emotional support? And then for you, what are you expecting? And then what are you trying to give me? Okay. So that way, because I think we have to have these conversations, because I think oftentimes expectations and what actually is received can be miles apart. And I think that I'm killing the game, as it comes to emotionally supporting you. Right. And maybe I'm not giving you the support that you need emotionally. So I know, does that make sense?
Yes. It does.
Okay. You want to add anything?
No, are we just let's do it?
Let's jump in? Okay. So I know I'll just talk about what I thought I needed to do as your husband, or how I perceived emotional support in the beginning of our marriage.
How, and you're saying how you were trying to support me?
Yes, I was trying to support you. The way I supported you emotionally in the beginning of our marriage is I just didn't. I believe. Now looking back, I didn't like emotional times. I didn't want to be around it. I was very uncomfortable with it. And I almost perceived it as a sign of weakness. And there's a lot that goes into that,
What goes into that?
Yeah. You asking me? Oh, okay. Well,
if you don't mind sharing some of it.
No, I will.
Because I think it's helpful for people to know, like, for women to know, like, where does that come from if their spouse is showing up that way, even for a man whose spouse isn't being, emotionally supportive. Yeah.
So first of all, I think just being a man, and we talk about this a lot on this podcast, we're not taught how to be emotional. And as a matter of fact, if you are being emotional, it's often perceived as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
You know, the stop all that crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry.
Yeah.
That statement.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know, have I ever used that with our kids? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't recall me ever using it. I don't know if I've ever heard you use that statement. Can't say it hadn't crossed my mind, but it just didn't sit well with me.
Okay. But it's just like, stop crying. Or I'm going to give you, obviously, they already have something to cry about because they're crying. So you saying, basically what we're telling them is don't be emotional.
Right. Because I don't want to deal with it.
Right. So, or because here's the deal. When you're not taught how to process emotions, emotions can be frustrating. And it doesn't take, it takes more time and effort to really process and walk through things. And I don't know, maybe sometimes we just don't. Maybe sometimes, in some instances, we don't have the time because we're trying to survive.
Sure.
But anyway, you know, just being a man, number one off the top. I think also being a Black man also plays into that, because just being a man, then a Black man, that's another layer on top of that, because I think for a lot of us, we have to deal with so much. And I know, I remember when I had ATM on, we talked about that and how you were saying a lot of these young men just don't smile.
Right.
And I think a lot of times it's because maybe sometimes they don't have anything to smile about. So like smiling or being emotional is not something that we do. We don't do that. We just don't do that. You know, I was talking to another person and they were just talking about on their job, how their job, they're like over communications for their company. And they were putting together like a calendar or something. And one of the a person of another nationality or race, maybe, I don't know what the word is I should be using. But anyway, she was not Black. And, you know, there was these pictures of these Black guys. They were standing there in the picture. And she was like, well, I don't want to use this picture because they're not smiling. And she was like, well, that doesn't mean they're not happy. Right. Just a lot of Black men just don't smile. We don't. And if you look at a lot, even my pictures, you know, I'm very stoic.
I was looking at your pictures this evening, working on the website, and I was like, they're all.
Yeah. So I'm trying to work on that. Serious. So that plays into it. And then, and this is my experience, but even in church, being in faith, you know, we're taught, I know I went through a period where I just saw emotions. We talk a lot, we teach a lot against and don't be emotions, and you shouldn't be led by your emotions. And if you're being led by your emotions, you're not being led by faith. And all these things. And for me, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me, I interpreted that as if I am emotional, then I'm not in faith. Yeah. If I'm emotional about it, I'm not hearing God, or I'm not trusting God, which is crazy, because I was talking to a friend of mine today and I was saying, you know, there are two instances that I can think of where Jesus was emotional, and it was right before he raised Lazarus and right before he went to the cross. Yeah. He was emotional, right? And you got what I'm saying? So that perception, that's, I think, where that came from. And the other part of it for me, it was that history, but the other part was I didn't like it because there was nothing I could do about it. A lot of times when you were being emotional, there was nothing that I could do to just fix it. I just had to allow you to go through that. And as I learned here later, emotionally, it's all about me just being there. Sometimes it's allowing you to cry on me, or just holding your hand while you cry. That's emotional support. So that's for me why I didn't like to be, I just kind of shied away from the emotional stuff. And when you did that, I'm gonna just let you do your thing. You go over there in the room and cry and do what you need to do. And when you're finished, you come out here and you can come back and be with me. So that's how I was perceiving it in the early stages of our marriage.
Yeah. You know, and when I listening to you talk and just kind of reflecting in my mind on some of those moments, you would often say to me, well, baby, you can't feel that way, or you can't think that way, you know, and it's just like, so you were telling me how I can feel or how I can think.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's not being emotional supportive. So now I am even more upset, but I feel bad about showing my emotions because I feel like now I'm doing something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful about the words that we use when we are supporting one another emotionally. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to think, you know, just to kind of piggyback off of that with you earlier in our marriage, with me showing emotional support. You know, I'm trying to recall a moment where I saw you vulnerable enough to that you needed emotional support. I do remember some instances where I could see some things were troubling you, or you were upset about something, or I can tell that you were down. And I do recall me trying to encourage you in who you are and how talented and gifted that you are, and all of the things that you have to offer. You know, I remember having those conversations, but like true emotional, like crying, upset, or angry, I didn't really see a whole lot of that. I think it was much later in our marriage before I saw that real vulnerable emotional side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's accurate for you, but that is what, as I think back, that's what,
yeah, it is. Cause like that was just my thinking. I didn't, even for me, I was like, I can't, again, being emotional equal a lot of negative things in my mind. And so I guess looking at that then, and so now what I've learned, like I said, being there for you emotionally, number one, it's not for me to fix. You know, and I think a lot of times that's what we try to do is when people come to us, and even beyond our spouses, you know, like a lot of times, even in ministry, I was very intimidated to counsel, and it's ironic and funny to me that we do that now, but coach or you know, do counseling or whatever you want to call it with couples is like I don't know how to fix that, and so, but it's even when it's not for me to fix it.
Right.
Our jobs are to be a safe place for people to express things and help them give word.
Yes.
And understand what's going on. And I like, you know, our good friends over at the kitchen table, Melissa Dunbar, she always talks about being story catchers and that concept, just because it's so. I found that many people don't have that place where they could go and just say what they want to say, say how they feel, use the words they really want to use, and not feel judged or, you know, so be creating that space. And so that's what I had to understand for you. I had to allow you to speak your truth, you know, and I always say that there's your truth, there's my truth, and then there's the truth, you know. And, you know, I always say your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth, but the truth is a lot of times that we both just need healing.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And if we, so it's, but again, a lot of times what we try to do is I want to convince you that my truth is more truth than your truth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so again, going back, I'm learning that real emotional support is just that, is being there, is being that support structure for that person to rest on in that time where they need to flush out some things emotionally, and giving them that space and creating that space, that safe space, you know, say what you got to say. And even though, and it's, that's why it's so important that we do the individual work, because, you know, I will admit that, you know, male ego is a big thing. Our ego, period, is a big thing, and it's hard for me to have that space for you, especially when I may be the one that's making you emotional. You know what I'm saying?
Meaning that you may have said or done something.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So my question for you, I have a question for you rather than
ask it,
a response.
And I'll try to answer it.
Is so in recent years, through growth and development, doing, you know, our own individual work, you have become a lot more open and a lot more vulnerable, you know, and so I do in those moments try to do my best to show you that emotional support, whether that's listening, just sitting with you, encouraging, you know, sending a text message or, you know, something like that. Or asking if there's anything, you know, in that moment that I could do to be of help. So my question for you is, how can I, as your wife, and other women out there who are wives, I know they're not married to you, thank God, it's just me. But, you know, how can I support you more or more effectively, or you feel more supported emotionally in those times when you're needing that emotional support? So
that's a good question. And that goes into the other part of what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is what I expect for some emotional support. So I'll say this. Number one, to all the men out there, we have to do a better job of communicating what we really want and need from our spouse. Because sometimes even that as a man is like, what do you mean? I don't need nothing. You know what I'm saying? I'm a man.
A lot of women like that too.
You know, well, maybe, but I'm speaking from the male experience, right? So, but the problem is a lot of times because we haven't been taught emotional intelligence, we don't even have the language to put that out there, right? And so, for me, I know I'm like you said, I'm an internal processor. And so, you know, when I am, so I may not be crying on the outside, but I'm crying on the inside. Sometimes I cry on the outside, but a lot of times I'm crying on the inside. And it's not that I'm afraid to cry now, or I don't want to cry, but it's just that's the way I process emotionally. I think for a lot of times, for a lot of women, maybe that may be a signal for you to back away. But it's not. And this is me because...
You mean when you're internal?
Yeah.
Okay.
To give me space. But really, most of the time, I don't want space. Because when you think about this, my love languages, my physical touch and quality time. So even though I may not want to talk about it, that doesn't mean I don't want to feel you against me. I don't want to feel you. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know, a cuddle, you know, and I know sometimes as a man, we don't want to, you know, I saw this meme the other day and there was this guy being spooned by his wife, and I'm saying this his wife, I don't know. But anyway, he was like, we want to be the little spoon sometimes. And I'm like, yes, I want to be the little spoon, you know. So spoon me, god dog it. No. So yeah. So I think for me, that's what emotional sports support looks like. And I know that may be hard sometimes because for a lot of women, they need to talk it out. But for us, for me, I need to process it. But in processing, I don't need space. I need you to be there.
To draw closer.
And if I get to the place where I do need space, being able to say that, and you not being offended to say, I just need a little space, you know? Because again, that's why I go back to, that's why it's important that we are both working and healing and working on what triggers us. Because if I say that, then that could, even though I don't say it in an offensive way,
right.
That could
be hurt feelings.
Right. And understand that right now, this is not your feelings. Right now, I'm the one that needs the emotional support. And I think because we don't see it as that, because we think that, you know, maybe as the man, or maybe the wife thinks, or maybe the man thinks that I don't need anybody, or I'm tough, you know, whatever. It causes us to think that we don't need, you know, you got what I'm saying? Right. We don't need that, but we do. And so for me, that's what I expect is maybe not, I'm not going to talk about it initially, but that doesn't mean I don't want you around me. I don't want you touching me.
Right.
I don't want, you know, us to be physical. You know, I need that comfort. You know, just to, you know, and again, just to be held, you know. And a lot of men may not be like, well, don't, you know. But no, for me, you know, and I know, because I've talked to enough men to know that some of you need it too. So don't try to take that, let that ego down and you know that. So yeah, for me, I think that's what I expect. So I guess now it's on you. Or if you want to comment on anything I just said and then share. Well,
you know, as you were talking, I was reflecting, and I do recall probably earlier in our marriage when I knew that you were processing things or going through things. And like, you know, I said you were not necessarily emotional, but I knew that something was happening in your head. Sometimes I knew what it was. Sometimes I didn't. And I did give you space without you asking for space, right? You know, because I kind of don't know how to approach, right? You know, after asking so many times, what's wrong? Or are you okay? And it's like nothing. And
let me just interject. I know. You know, a lot, and that's what a lot of times, you know, ladies, you know, your wife, man, what's wrong? Well, God dog, obviously something wrong. So, you know, and again, it goes back to, I think, the way we're made. Because like you need to, you want the why and all of the, you know, and the truth of the matter is though, here's the truth. Sometimes we don't know.
This is true.
And so when we're saying nothing, maybe what we should say is, I don't know.
Right. I'm trying to figure it out.
But that sounds even crazier, you know? It's like, well, why you acting like this? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You know? So sometimes we just don't know, and we need that time.
Maybe we need to say, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe that's a good answer. Instead of saying nothing.
Or I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to
figure it out. Yeah, that's a good one. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So for me, I think showing emotional support, and you do a much better job because we've had a lot of these conversations. It's just being present. You know, if you notice that something is going on, you know, hey, are you okay? Would you like to talk about it? Giving me the space to talk about it. Or most of the time, I'm going to come to you. You don't have to come to me. It's, you know, and just listening, you know, listening with some affection and not just like, blank face, like, don't give me, because sometimes when we're in counseling sessions or coaching sessions, we want to remain neutral. Not that we don't have any facial expressions, but I'm just saying. But like in those moments when when it's you and I as husband and wife, like, listen and show that you are emotionally tracking with me, or you're trying to. If you don't understand or feel what I feel, ask more questions, like we always talk about. But just really listening and not trying to tell me, well, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, well, you shouldn't feel that way. And you haven't done that in a super long time. But, asking, do you want me to just listen? You want feedback? Do you want advice? Can I hold you? What have you, and, but you've been doing a much more better job at that. I mean, and it's been a long time.
Much more.
Much more.
More better.
Yeah, my brain was thinking of several other things. But yeah, so in those ways, there are some things that, I may get frustrated with, rather it be, things with the kids that I've, how that goes when you say the same thing over and over again every week. Yeah. Sometimes getting a little bit more backing in that area, or, is there anything that, I can do, or having a separate, conversation. I'm very mindful of that. I have my role, with them. Sometimes, though, they need to hear it from a different voice. You know what I mean? So that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing. So yeah. So it's really important that we understand and know what that looks like, and have that conversation, and be able to be honest, be open, honest, and honest with each other to say what you did there just didn't do it. And for me, again, it goes back to listening. And you said it, listening. I say it's empathetic listening, and putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding, well, yeah, maybe if that was said or done to me in that way at that time, in that moment, I can see how you felt and why you felt that way. Right.
And knowing me the way that you know me, it's like, yeah, I can see why you would have experienced that in the way that you did. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, anything else?
No, I think, well, yes. The emotional support is huge. It's one of those areas where, like you described earlier, how, in the beginning of our marriage, how you just really didn't want to fool with it because it just was uncomfortable, didn't really know where to place it. We have to realize that as people, stuff happens, life happens, and things get messy, and we have to be okay in marriage to get in the messy with our people, with our spouses, yeah. And so don't run from the emotion, run to the emotion, no, we don't allow our emotions to take over and to rule us. Right. But this is very different from that. This is that I'm allowing myself to feel and to experience the gift of emotion. And sometimes I will need the support of my spouse when I am feeling and experiencing that.
Yeah, and I look at it this way now. It's like when I am emotional about something, my first question I ask myself is, why am I emotional?
Absolutely.
Why am I feeling this way about this? And sometimes it's just because, my dad passed away. So I'm, but sometimes it's like if my kids do something Why did that make me so angry?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why, when I am the adult in the situation and I have all the control in the situation, why am I the one that's so angry about this? So what is that? Is it, and a lot of times I know for me, it went back to the ego thing.
Sure.
Like, you're going to respect me. You're going to obey me. You're going to do what I say. But what I've learned even in that is like, respect is built out of relationship. And if we don't have great relationships, and I know that I'm not trying to say, because I can hear y'all now, I ain't here to be my kids' friends. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm not one of your little friends.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. But there's still a way to have a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that relationship should look like more teaching.
Yeah.
I know is one of the guys that I really look up to, and I heard him say this about his sons. He's like, the more teaching I did, the less correcting I had to do. And I really took that to heart. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, emotions. So emotions.
You're thinking about my comment?
Which comment?
About me and the kids and no?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
But I was just saying the emotional, they're indicators. And it's like, it's indicators of where things are not, a lot of times they're where things are not at zero, what we call, this is a trigger for me. Why is this a trigger for me? And it's an indicator of the areas I still need to work on me.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to, for me, when it comes to anger, when it comes to, that kind of thing. If you say something or do something, it's like, why is this making me feel this way? Why? You got what I'm saying? So that's what, that's what it is for me. But a lot of times when we say, well, that's just the way I am.
The cricket.
And we just kind of brush it off, but we don't take the time to do the investigation to find out the why behind what's driving this emotion. And I always say, emotions, if we didn't need them, then God wouldn't have gave them to us, right? But they are a part of our being. They're a part of our makeup, and they're there for a reason.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Sure is. Anything else?
Nope.
You sure? Last time you said no, you said.
I said no, yeah, but.
All right. So, so I'm just encouraging you, number one, is to know, is to get, if you don't know how to, if you're having these emotions and you don't know what to do with them, you don't know the why, get help. Reach out to somebody. There are a lot of, counselors, therapists, coaches that have been trained to help you to process through what you're dealing with. So reach out to somebody, get help, and also have those conversations with your spouse or your significant other to really so that your spouse or your that person in your life really understands what you expect from them and what you expect for each other. So if you tell me, because I think the other mistake we make is we expect other people to know what to do, and we just don't. That there's
people
no manual. Tynia didn't come with an instruction manual, so I can look through as okay. If she's crying and laying down and just crying uncontrollably, what should I do? I'm going to go to page 6, 7. Oh, okay. Lay beside her and rub her back, and you know what I'm saying. So we need to have those conversations. Where you at?
Well, I was gonna say we need to let one another know what we expect the other person to do, but that word what I expect you to do doesn't feel as vulnerable to me as what I need from you.
Okay, that's a better word. You're right.
Because expect would be that I expect you to know what to do.
Or expect is like you're gonna do it.
Right.
Because even though you give these expectations,
right,
then that doesn't necessarily it's need, to me, it's like I'm doing it's more out of love, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that. So you need to tell each other what you need from them.
Yep.
Emotionally, this is what I need from you. And when you get those needs, sometimes those needs may feel like they're outside of your scope. But that's an opportunity for you to grow.
Yes.
And sometimes when your spouse voice their needs, you may need to go and talk to somebody about those needs because you may not have the capacity or be comfortable. Maybe not have the capacity, because I think everybody has the capacity, but maybe the word is comfortable. You're better with the words than I am. But you may not be comfortable doing that, or you may not know how to do that. So you may need to go talk to someone about what your spouse told you that they needed, you know. But it starts with the conversation. It starts with communication. As you know, we always say, it always goes back to communication. Communicate
openly and honestly about everything all of the time.
Yeah. So
from a place of love and respect.
And admiration. I just wanted to throw something in there.
Okay.
Okay. So for real, we're going to wrap this up. So hopefully you got this. So have the conversations, do the work individually, do the work together to grow. And we always had this, our mission statement is we help couples heal from past experiences so they could be the best versions of themselves. Yes. Yeah. We help couples heal from past experiences so that they can be the best versions of themselves. Because that's what I want to be. Number one, I want to be the best version of myself for me. Number one. I also want to be the best version of myself for Tynia. And I want to be the best version of myself for my kids.
Absolutely.
Because we all deserve the best version of me. So that's all we got for you this week. Hopefully you got something out of that. Hey, if you need help, reach out. We're here to help. Reach out to us. We got some things cooking, as always, that we're going to be talking about and
real soon.
Rolling out soon. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can now listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, every digital outlet that carries podcasts. We usually are there. So
usually you're there?
Yeah, because our distributor, there's a list of all of the places that the podcast is goes out to, and I don't. It's a really long list. So that's why I say usually, most likely we're there.
Okay.
That's all we've got. So this is Glenn and Tynia Coleman reminding you that
your marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.